evening workshop where we will be talking about overcoming insurance and recovery obstacles. We've got some very special experts with us tonight, and I and I'm very much looking forward to uh, bringing you the information. We are offering tonight's program in English and in Spanish. And for those of you who are looking to learn in Spanish, this is the instructions for choosing Spanish from the options on your menu panel. For those of you who are listening in English, you go to that little globe guy, click on it and pick English, and that should get you on track. And that's how it'll look when you pick your option. Through the miracle of technology, we are able to simultaneously present in English and Spanish. Um, and before I talk about United Policyholders, I really have to say we wouldn't be here tonight except for your elected representative in Jackson County, Pam Marsh. It's thanks to Pam that we're here. And you'll be meeting her in a minute if you haven't already. And I'm imagining that a lot of you who came on tonight already had some education in the fall, and a lot of that was thanks to Representative Marsh. Our organization, you may not have heard of us, but we are 30 years old. We are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit like the Red Cross or the Sierra Club, but we have a very specific focus. We are your voice and your information resource as an insurance consumer or a policyholder. So we are here to give you information to help you make good decisions and try to continue to navigate the very, very difficult path that you're on, recovering from last fall's wildfires. We have a 30-year track record and subject matter expertise in insurance and disaster recovery. We say we're not for profit, not for sale, because we're not here to sell you anything. You cannot hire us. We are here to give you information and suggestions and guidance. And we don't take money from insurance companies, but we know a lot about insurance. We have a volunteer corps that has either personal or professional expertise in disaster recovery and insurance. And our funding comes from something called the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. We would have loved to be with you from the very beginning, but as you all may know, last fall was a brutal one. There were wildfires in Colorado and California, Washington and Oregon, and we were funded first not in Oregon, but luckily you've been in great hands with Representative Marsh. And OTLA, the Oregon Travelers Association, and all the resources, including the Division of Financial Regulation that's here with us tonight, the town halls that the Insurance Commissioner Stolfi put on in the fall, and then there's going to be another one coming up. So we're here as part of a network, a help network. A little bit of quick fine print. This workshop is just intended to be general guidance, not legal advice. And if you have a specific legal question, we will encourage you to register for a clinic that we've got coming up at the end of the month. As I mentioned, our organization has been in the business of supporting individuals and communities on the road to recovery since the Oakland Berkeley fire in 1991 in California. Since then, we have done wildfire recovery work in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Washington, and a little bit in Oregon. But we are very, very pleased to have gotten some funding to be with you tonight and to sort of join Representative Marsh, the Division of Financial Regulation, and the volunteer attorneys and the private attorneys that have already been shepherding you on your journey. This is a book that we have been that we published in many years ago that is still available free. If you want it, you email us. Most of the chapters are written by people who've been there, done that, lost their homes in a wildfire, learned some useful information, shared it with us, and now are passing it on to you. And a lot of the help that United Policyholders offers through our Roadmap to Recovery program is based on the experiences that people have had after previous fires. Everyone is a little different, but there are a lot of things that are similar. So we have a library that we set up for your wildfires on our website. It's been up there since the fall. And this is where you will find some of our useful samples of inventory forms, samples of dwelling replacement estimates, letters, sample letters you can use to be an effective communicator, and then previous workshops that we've done on a range of topics. Our organization, we call ourselves Team Up, in that we have professional staff. We have our government nonprofit partners. Those are the folks that are with us tonight, Representative Marsh and your the agency in Oregon that oversees insurance companies. And then our amazing volunteers, many of whom, as I said, went through a wildfire and got some really good wisdom that they now pay forward through our organization. We also have a lot of consumer-oriented professional volunteers, and we've been opening up our workshops to your community now since the beginning. So the workshops that we've been doing in Colorado and California have been open to Oregon residents, including our survivor to survivor forums and some of the other resources that we've been making available. So if you didn't know about them already, now you do. And there's no time like the present. So our presenters are today the Honorable Pamela Marsh, who represents District 5, myself, and then Trisha Goldsmith, who's the Senior Manager of Consumer Education and Advocacy with your state agency, the Oregon Department of Consumer and Business Services in the Division of Financial Regulation. Representative Marsh, thank you so much for being with us and your patience through the introductions. You have been pretty much a standout as an elected official who's rolled up her sleeves and been delivering really specific information to your constituents from the beginning. So welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. Life changed for us in Southern Oregon on September 8th when 2,500 of our neighbors lost their homes. Many people lost hundreds of businesses. And we have all pulled together to try to provide information and resources to the best of our ability. But 6 months in, it is increasingly apparent that many of us are still struggling with insurance issues and other barriers. And so tonight, I just want to say how grateful I am to United Policyholders, to Amy Bach, to Trisha Goldsmith from the State Department of Business and Consumer Affairs for really stepping up and helping us at this marker point to really figure out what's still standing in the way and what kinds of resources do people need to be able to address those barriers. So thank you for all of this. And I'm very grateful to be here with everyone.
Well, and Representative Marsh, I think your website has got some fantastic links. I've got a screenshot that'll be in the slide deck. And I know that you are, not only are you helping people in the here and now, but you are taking some of the experiences that your constituents are having with insurance and recovery, and you are also carrying some legislation to try to make things better in the future. So hats off to you, and it's just a privilege to be able to work with you. So thank you, and feel free to pop in as we go through with information that's relevant. That's me. I've been a professional consumer advocate since 1984. So I know my way around the block when it comes to insurance and the claim process and sort of the politics that come into play in the post-disaster scenario, and of course, so that makes me kind of a very strange person that I have this strange area of expertise, and I have. But I have an amazing team, so it's just a privilege. So we're going to be quickly reviewing some of the resources on Representative Marsh's website. We're going to talk a little bit about what help is available through your Division of Financial Regulation, your agency that oversees insurers. And then we will talk about some of the resources that are available through our organization's Roadmap to Recovery program. We will hit a little bit on your making sure that 6 months in, you have a pretty good understanding of the policy benefits that are available to you, when you can expect to collect all of them, what are the rules, and hopefully some of what we're going to be talking about tonight will be things you already know, but the goal is to give you more strategies if you are stuck on things, and make sure that you are where you should be, to the extent that there are any shoulds in the strange world of post wildfire life. So we'll hit a little bit on total losses if you had a mobile or manufactured home or a stick built. We'll hit a little bit on standing homes, some of the issues people often are stuck on, the challenge of creating an inventory, and what are some of the strategies you can use to lessen the pain of that process, common obstacles, strategies for overcoming them, and most importantly, what resources there are for you to troubleshoot. So this is Representative Marsh's website, specifically the resources for those of you who lost a home or had your home damaged, and that's a mobile or manufactured home. So great resources there. If you have not been accessing them, I strongly encourage you to access them. And in your state, like every state, you have an agency that is charged with overseeing the businesses that serve you as a resident. And I'm going to turn it over now to Trisha Goldsmith, who, as I said earlier, is a senior advocate with the division that oversees insurance. Thank you so much for being with us, Trisha.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Again, welcome. It's nice to see everybody this evening. We'll go ahead and, again, my name is Trisha, and I'm the Outreach and Advocacy Manager for the Oregon Division of Financial Regulation, which is part of the Department of Consumer and Business Services. The Department of Consumer Business Services is the state's largest business regulation and consumer protection agency. So I just want to start tonight by thanking Representative Marsh for hosting this event, and thank you for taking your time to join us tonight. The Labor Day fires were simply tragic, and the road to recovery is going to be long. It's been about 6 months now since the wildfires, and a lot has happened in that time, but the majority of work is still ahead of us. One of the main things to remember is that recovery is going to take time, but it will happen. Tonight, I want to provide you with information and resources that will help you through the recovery phase. And the good news is that you don't have to do it alone. If you have questions or concerns about your insurance claim, the Oregon Division of Financial Regulation has a team of advocates that can help you. So we always recommend that you talk with your insurance company or agent first. But if you still have questions or concerns, our advocates are here to help you with accurate, up-to-date, Oregon-specific information to help you walk through the recovery process. And our services are free of charge. So yes, thank you for the next slide there. So again, the division.
Want me to go back? Do you want to say more about the?
So we're should be on the second slide there. There you go. Yeah. So the Division of Financial Regulation is responsible for state regulation of insurance and financial and services industries. So we regulate insurance companies and agents, state chartered banks and credit unions, investments and securities, as well as the mortgage industry and several non-depository programs, such as payday lending and pawn shops. My team serves as the Consumer Advocate and Education Unit, and I'll provide some more details on that soon. So the Division of Financial Regulation has had a very active role in responding to this disaster. Next slide, please. So as the regulator, we issue licenses for insurance companies, agents, and their adjusters. We review and investigate actions of professionals and companies licensed by the division to ensure that they're compliant with Oregon law. We also provide guidance to insurance companies. For example, we issued a bulletin on September the 25th that provided guidance to insurance companies to expedite the claim handling process, provide 4-month advance on additional living expenses, and allow consumers to use inventory forms that are similar to the company's specific forms that allow consumers to group categories of personal property, such as livestock supplies, clothing, or food items. This guidance is not mandatory, but establishes the expectations that we have as regulators for handling the claims of people who lost their homes during the wildfires. Next page, please. One of the main steps we took as an agency is to protect your contractual rights for rebuilding under your insurance policy. To do that, we established a wildfire rebuild agreement with several of the insurance companies that operate in Oregon. This agreement means that you have at least 2 years from the date of loss to rebuild your homes. The agreement also provides you the opportunity to rebuild at a different location if you choose to do so. This agreement allows Oregonians the ability to recover from this disaster and help alleviate some of the demand on construction resources. Approximately 40 insurance companies and their affiliates have signed on to this agreement, and you can find a list of those companies on our website. So if you go to dfr.oregon.gov and you click on that red wildfire insurance resources button on our homepage. If your company hasn't signed on to this agreement, we encourage you to find out how long you have to rebuild your home and what other rights you have under the terms of your contract. Next page, please. Thank you. One important role we serve at the division is consumer advocacy. Our advocacy unit is made up of people with deep insurance knowledge and experience that's specific to Oregon. We're here to help you with your insurance concerns, which again is free of charge. Most of the inquiries we receive are about the claim process and people just wanting to understand what to expect. But if you have a problem with your insurance company, the way they're handling your claim, or you have concerns about your settlement, you can give us a call first. Our team is equipped to help resolve your concerns. And when you file a complaint with the division, we work directly with you and the insurance company to help resolve the matter. Next slide, please. So in 2020, we provided help to more than 13,500 Oregonians and resolved more than 3,500 insurance complaints. Our help resulted in more than $3.6 million for Oregonians who needed help with their insurance claims. When we contact an insurance company on your behalf, they're required to respond directly to us about your concern. The good news is that most complaints are resolved within 60 days and the service is free, so all of the proceeds stay with you. Next slide, please. So remember, if something does not seem right with your claim or your settlement, the first step is to talk with your insurance company, your adjuster, or your agent. Ask direct questions about anything you do not understand. Make sure you have a good understanding of your coverage, the exclusions under your policy, the limits of your policy, and any deductibles that you have. If you do that and something is still not right, contact the consumer advocates at the Division of Financial Regulation. Our team will help provide accurate, up-to-date, Oregon-specific information. We can work directly with your insurance company free of charge. And let us see if we can help before you need to take civil action. Next slide, please. In addition to consumer advocacy, our team also conducts consumer education. We have a team of dedicated people who reach out to communities and provide educational events and resources on several insurance and financial service topics. Next month, we have an opportunity that may be valuable for people here tonight. It will be our third virtual wildfire insurance town hall. We encourage you to join us on the afternoon of Thursday, April the 29th. The town hall will be held via Zoom and hosted by our Oregon Insurance Commissioner, Andrew Stolfi. During the town hall, we'll answer questions and discuss a number of recovery topics, including ways to avoid scams during the rebuilding process. We'll be joined by Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum to discuss this important topic. So please plan on joining us on Thursday, April the 29th at noon. You can email our outreach team to get a notice when the registration comes up. That email is outreach.dfr@oregon.gov. And more information about the town hall will be available soon on our website, again, the dfr.oregon.gov. So if you go to the website, you can also watch our previous town halls by, again, visiting that red wildfire insurance resources button. Next page, please. Thank you again for allowing me to meet with everyone this evening. Don't forget that consumer advocates are here to help you free of charge. If something doesn't seem right or you're not getting answers from your insurance company, before you hire somebody, give us a call. Let us see if we can help. You can call us toll free, you can send us an email, or you can visit our website, which contains a lot of information that might be helpful for you. So again, thank you for letting me join you this evening.
Well, Trisha, thank you for joining us. I think you probably heard a theme here in Trisha's remarks that her agency's services are free. Unlike some of the professionals that no doubt have either approached you in the fall or continue to approach you and suggest that you hire them to help you with their claims, Trisha's agency will certainly do what they can to help you and will not charge you. And you know, we say this early and often that each person's journey on the road to recovery is different. And some people have the ability to just handle it all themselves. And some people need help. And free help is always, of course, the best first option. But there are situations with insurance where sometimes it's too much for people, you know, whether you can't deal with, you know, being out on site and all that, meeting with the adjuster and dealing with all the paperwork. There's no shame in getting help, even if you have to pay for it. But as Trisha said, you don't want to pay for it unless you have to, unless you've hit a wall or unless there's a reason. And that's because when you pay your premiums, you've already paid for both coverage and good claim service. So in theory, you shouldn't have to pay again, a public adjuster or a lawyer. But in reality, some people do. And that's okay as long as you are careful with who you hire and you don't bring a lawyer in too early unnecessarily, because as anyone who has been in this business a long time will tell you, once a lawyer gets involved, then the insurance company is going to generally, they're going to bring a lawyer in, and then things can take longer. So separate from, you know, you having to actually pay the lawyer a fee, you also may have some delays. So I'm a lawyer. I think there are many situations where a lawyer is the only solution to to resolve a dispute. But I think I want to make sure that you heard very clearly what Trisha was saying. I mean, that's really what our organization is here for as well. You know, we are here to help you get the benefits you paid for and be your own best advocate. And so all my message on this point is that sometimes you can be a good advocate for yourself and you still hit a wall. And there's no shame. It happens to people. And there is good help available. But amazingly, to me still, there are people that will scam and take advantage of disaster victims, which is kind of hard to really get your mind around. But I think 6 months in, you all probably know that already. So luckily, you have a very proactive state regulator, Andrew Stolfi. I have worked with for some years at the national level, and he's a consumer advocate, and obviously his team is going to bat for you, as is your elected representative. So this is just a screenshot from Trisha's agency's website to learn about how you can access their help. This is another little more information about that rebuild agreement. It was a little hard to read that on the screen, but the rebuild agreement that that Commissioner Stolfi negotiated with a group of insurers is very, very useful to you. And to find that, and to find this bulletin, which I like, which was actually executed earlier, and all the way back in September, right after your fires. These are messages to insurers to fly right, do the right thing, and try to bend over backwards to make things easier on you. Meaning, the rebuild agreement, trying to bring a little more flexibility into the forms you use to put your inventory in, and to work with you, understanding that this is, for most of you, hopefully your first and last time dealing with a very large insurance claim. It's a lot more, it can be more complicated and time consuming than any other insurance matter that you've ever been involved with. And that's kind of an understatement. But as far as that rebuild agreement, it's a little bit like something that got negotiated by the regulator in California. And I'm hoping that this is going to be kind of something that happens after every wildfire, where insurers will sit down and agree to make things a little easier. We would like to see them do it without being, we'd love to see them do it voluntarily, but it's, this is business, and insurers are for-profit businesses, and that's an important thing to remember. So if you're working with an adjuster who's from out of state and they may not know about the rebuild agreement, now you can remember to remind them of it. On wildfire, on the debris removal, we understand that that folks are still, that's a work in progress, and again, that's sort of normal. It when you have the extent of devastation that you've had. So we just encourage you to be patient, that the process is underway. And if you need more information, that's the website to get it from. So just some real basic information from our organization. A reminder that recovering from a wildfire is definitely more like a marathon than a sprint. And we really encourage people to try to take as much care of yourself as you can, and try to not to take your time with things. And I know that there are deadlines, and that puts pressure. But if people are pressuring you, if your adjuster is pressuring you to make a decision before you're ready, or to you are absolutely within your rights to say, I need a little bit of time, give me a couple of days, and give yourself a chance to think things through. Having worked with people who've lost homes now for such a long time, I know that most people are just not at their mental peak, not sleeping the way you did. You got on top of your normal life, which was challenging before COVID, then got more challenging during COVID, then got even crazy more challenging. All you can do is try to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Insurance is a vehicle to get you back where you were before your loss, but it doesn't always drive itself. So we really encourage you to understand that ads are ads. Your insurance company is not your good neighbor and all that. They're a business. And so, we encourage you to think of your claim as a business negotiation. And really, all those ads that kind of lead you to think that your insurance company is going to come riding in and they're going to take care of everything and it's going to be okay. When that happens, great, right? And it often does. Sometimes claims go just fine. But since our organization has been around for 30 years, I can tell you that it doesn't always go great. And that's why we're here, is to help when problems arise. But again, one thing that we've learned and seen over and over, that being passive about having your loss valued is likely to is not going to be the best path to making sure that you get a fair and full settlement. Sometimes an adjuster will come out. Many of you maybe, your adjuster came out, and on the first visit back in the fall, they cut you a really big check, and it was great and really helpful, and you thought everything was great. And now you're sitting here at this webinar because you're not sure that you got everything that you're entitled to. And so, our message is you don't have to come in with your fists up and ready, for battle, but you need to have a realistic understanding of the process. It's your house, it's your assets. You have the biggest financial stake in making sure that they get restored. And knowing that adjusters have different levels of experience. Your first adjuster, typically adjusters will rotate through after disasters, especially when there are multiple disasters. So you may have had a rookie at first, or you may have had a really experienced adjuster. It just depends. But because of that, we recommend that you be proactive in valuing your losses and understanding and politely asserting your rights so you can collect every dime of insurance funds and be able to restore your assets. Now, we know that many of you are underinsured because after every wildfire we've worked, about 2/3. And so we'll be talking a little bit about some strategies there. So again, state of mind, and coming in here 6 months in, you may already have been thinking about these things, but I just want to kind of remind you about them because these are sort of tried and true principles that we have seen over the years be helpful. Give your insurance company a chance to do the right thing, but don't be a pushover. Knowledge equals power and money. The more you understand about your benefits, your rights, and the value of your losses, the more benefits you will recover, and the smoother the recovery will go. Time is on your side. Statistics show the longer a claim stays open, the more money the policyholder receives. That doesn't mean that you can sit on your hands. You don't have, you have the 2 years if your insurer has agreed to be part of that rebuild agreement, but your policy may not give you that much time, and you may now need to be thinking about what kind of an extension you want to request from your insurance company, or what you're going to do in the next 6 months. So that doesn't mean panic, but that means keep an eye on your policy deadlines. And if you think you're going to be needing more time, get in touch with Trisha's agency and see if they can help you get a voluntary extension from your insurer. It happens quite often, especially because of COVID and things taking longer. And so I've made these points. When interacting with the insurance company, 2 words describe the approach most likely to get what you need. You've probably already heard this theme from me already this evening: polite assertiveness. Adjusters are people, they're human beings. If you piss them off, they're going to not be as cooperative as you would like them to be. Keeping a journal, super important. We find that keeping your paperwork organized can be very hard when your life has been upended, but it does lead to money. So the more organized you are, particularly with receipts for your temporary living expenses and things that you replace, household items, furniture for your temporary home, or once you replace your dwelling, keeping track of those records, of those receipts, is going to really help you make sure that you get reimbursed under the terms of your policy. Many people find that opening a separate bank account, it's not too late, 6 months in, for insurance funds is helpful to keep a track of things. And we offer an accounting spreadsheet that one of our volunteers donated that can help you keep track of your expenses, particularly for a rebuild project. So we've already talked about why we recommend having a paper trail, and both because adjusters rotate out, so it kind of keeps you on track. It confirms that you're cooperating, which you must do with your insurer, and then it tracks problems and progress, and then it's perfectly legitimate and important that if your adjuster is holding up, not answering you, and there's a delay that's adding to your stress, then you communicate in writing to your insurance company that that's happening, so that there is a paper trail that keeps them on notice of how the process is going for you, because it's a two-way street, right? You paid them for good claim service. And so if they're not giving you that, you need to tell them that in writing. Um, and then, of course, a paper trail is going to help you if you go to Trisha's agency and you file a complaint, and they're going to want to know, well, what can you give us um, a, a, a status update or some sort of um, a little report on what's happened so far. It's nice to have your journal, and then you just don't have to go back and try to remember. And the same goes with if you were to go and consult with an attorney. So some of the decision points that I'm sure you're all already been grappling with, do you have enough insurance to rebuild the home you had? Do you even want to replace the home? Do you want to build a smaller home, a bigger home with using some of your own money? Or for most people who are underinsured, it's really a question of what can you afford to build? Um, and of course, if you have a mortgage, you still owe that. And so that's a consideration. And you may want to talk to a financial advisor. Now, in your state, an insurer does have the right to insist that you do rebuild in order for them to owe you every dime of coverage. But despite the rebuild agreement, which lets you rebuild on a different spot, but there is case law, not a Oregon statute, but there is case law, meaning laws that are made by lawsuits and judges and published decisions that says that you can negotiate with your insurer. You can try. It doesn't mean that they have to do it, but you can certainly ask and try to negotiate, to say, okay, if I were going to rebuild the exact same home I had, and that's what the insurer owes me, then it would cost X, and then you can try to negotiate using the case law to say, why don't you just give me that same amount of money, and I'm going to get out of harm's way and buy a home not in a WUI. Not an easy path, but it can be done, and it has been done. Our website has a lot of information with strategies that people have used to get insurers to do things that may not be exactly what's in the contract, but that make financial sense for them. It's just a matter of negotiation. Okay, if you're underinsured, what are your options? Build smaller, cheaper creatively, use loans and savings, or negotiate with your insurer just to do a cash out. This is just a little bit more about our organization. We talk about speaking up, and really it's about being that squeaky wheel who gets paid, letting the insurance company know that you are informed, that you are and that you are paying attention, and that you intend to get a fair settlement, and you're going to hang in there until you do. Okay, we suggest having a working copy of your policy, so one that you can write on. So you, by now, hopefully you all have looked at your declarations pages, that first page of your policy. This is a sample. Hopefully by now, you all have the current policy, and you can see what your limits are, and you now know that there are that what you see on the declarations page may not be all you get. There may be other formulas in the policy that give you more money. So here's one where this person has 339,000 on their dwelling, and then they have extended replacement costs because they purchased that. So that's an example. It's pretty clear on the deck page here. We call it the declarations page, deck page. It's pretty clear what their extended replacement cost is. For a lot of people, their policy won't say the dollar amounts. You have to do the math yourself. It'll be more like what you see on the right there, where it says building ordinance or law, 25%. There you have to do the math. They're not laying out the dollar amount that you have available for if you have to improve on your old home in order to comply with current building codes. It's typically electrical, plumbing, foundation, and you have expenses for that. Insurers typically won't pay for those expenses unless you've got this extra coverage, which this person did. But here you have to do the math to figure out 25% and read the policy. Is it 25% of 339,000, or is it 25% of 339,000 plus the 84, the adjusted coverage A limit? And this is where reading your policy is really important, because if your reading of the policy is that you've got 25% of those two combined dollar amounts, that's a chunk of change. But only if your reading of the policy is reasonable and supports that interpretation. Now, for those of you who have manufactured homes, it is a little more straightforward. There isn't as much math involved in figuring out your max limits. Here you see, this is a typical policy on a manufactured home. Pretty straightforward, although you can see there under forms and endorsements, extended replacement cost. Well, okay, you'll have to read the policy to figure out what that is. An additional coverage endorsement, again, who knows what that actually is. You look at the form number on the left, 4035, and then you're going to go into the policy and find that language, that 4035 form, and read it and see, what did you pay $5 to get? What was that additional coverage? So before you reach a settlement, you really want to make sure that you've unearthed every pot of money that's in that policy. And some adjusters will do that for you and with you, and some of them will not. Okay, so another example. This is another one where you have to do some math, although here you see this person has the ordinance or law that we were talking about, that building code compliance. It states it as a dollar amount, not a percentage. But what does this person have for this homeowners plus endorsement with 2% inflation guard? Who knows? How do you figure it out? You go over there, you look at the code, you see the forms and endorsements, you look at the code for that extra coverage, GP H03 110501, and you got to read it and figure out what extra coverage, if anything, that's going to give you, right? There at the bottom, you can see on this example, this person has a 25% coverage extension, math required, right? And most likely that will be 25% of that 761,000, although you really can't be sure until you read what that homeowners plus endorsement with the inflation guard says, because maybe that adjusted that $761,000 figure. And you really can't know until you've matched those codes and read the policy. All right. I put this in here because I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, well, this lucky person had a pretty big house, 4,200 square feet, but it shows you how much insurance they had per square foot, $177. And that, my friends, is a little low these days. May not be killer low, but might be a challenge. Okay, so even in a home that's insured looks like a lot of money, can end up being underinsured given the current construction prices and the high demand in the region. All right, so those are a few examples of what your declarations page might look like, and how you want to pay attention to the math. Riders, endorsements, extended coverages. Insurance is full of lingo, words that people wouldn't understand, wouldn't want to understand, but that translate into money for you. So it is worth understanding what you've got, which is why I was talking about the codes and those endorsements. Because if you have endorsements, riders, it's kind of the same thing, really. It's an addition to the basic policy. Not always additional coverage, but it's additional language. Sometimes a rider or an endorsement will actually reduce the coverage, but that's why you have to read them. They are part of that policy contract. Okay. And this is the perfect, when this stuff confuses you, that's what Trisha's agency is for. Explaining these things to you. And these are just examples of of some of the endorsements that you might have. And I don't want to make anyone dizzy here. It's just to give you a sense of what some of the differences are between policies. So we've already gone through looking at your declarations page to see whether there's any pockets of coverage that you might have missed. And here's one showing that this person had a 50% bump in their coverage. Well, coverage A, which is dwelling. Well, that is a valuable add-on that can really make a pretty big difference. And you're going to want to do that math yourself. And here again, you see code upgrade coverage, which turns out to be quite important. Okay, so you heard Trisha talk about the rebuild agreement and the fact that some money, hopefully, got into your hands sooner than it might otherwise because of that rebuild agreement. If your insurance company was participating, they agreed to advance some of your benefits before you had to submit all the paperwork, right? So that's a good thing. Advances are a good thing. And then typically your insurer will make an actual cash value payment when you and they have reached agreement on the value of either your contents or your dwelling. And then if you have replacement value insurance, replacement cost value, RCV, which is the replacement price as opposed to the used price, the depreciated, we call it sometimes Craigslist price, ACV. RCV is what it's going to cost you to buy it now. Once you've reached an agreement, and then you spend the money to replace things, you should be able to get that money back by proving those expenditures. And that's why keeping receipts is so important. So these are the payout rules in Oregon. Obviously, the 30 days for the insurer, the 45 days for the insurer to complete its claim investigation is getting extended over and over here. But again, your insurance company, actually, I shouldn't say again, I'm not sure that we said this really plain and clear. When you paid for your insurance, you paid for coverage and fair claim service, which means a good and timely investigation by the adjuster of your loss and prompt payment of monies that you're owed. You're entitled to that under Oregon law. And part of Trisha's agency's job is to make sure that you are getting what you're entitled to. Okay. If just like the insurer has been getting extensions of their time to complete their claim investigation, if you need extensions, then you should be entitled to them as long as you make a very good argument as to why you're entitled to it. And the insurers will say it's a contract It is a contract, but there are laws that affect that contract. And your insurance company has obligations to you to be fair at all times and to be reasonable. And so, although some of this is super black and white, some of it is not. And that's why I'm here to give you the straight scoop about your rights. Insurers are encouraged under the rebuild agreement, but not mandated, to give you that minimum of 4 months advance on your ALE and a little bit more flexibility with how you list all your lost property. These are practices that have been considered are illegal in your state. An insurer cannot do these things. They cannot misrepresent facts or policy provisions when settling your claim. They can't ignore your communications. They cannot refuse to pay your claim without conducting a reasonable investigation. And they cannot leave you hanging. They have to affirm or deny within a reasonable amount of time. Okay. Your loss settlement provisions determine how and when the benefits will be paid. And the ones to pay attention to are the when they will pay you that replacement value, as opposed to when they paid you the actual cash value. Okay, we're going to skip over some of this in the interest of time, but just know that some things you will only get ACV for, depending on what your policy says. That's that Craigslist price. Some things, all right? But it all depends on what your policy says, all right? And this is typical policy language about when the insurer owes you the actual cash value and replacement value. All right, so those of you with manufactured homes, I'm sure you already know this, so we're going to zoom through. You've got your 4 standard buckets typically, and the same ACV, RCV, actual cash value, replacement cost value. Those are that's insurance terminology for we're only going to pay you X until it's established that we owe you Y. Okay. Here's your typical mobile home policy. We saw a manufactured home policy. If mobile homes would be one built before 1976. So if you had one of those, the policy may look very similar to this. But for a manufactured home, again, we looked at one of these earlier. This is generally what most of them are going to look like. If you have not settled by now, and I'm guessing many of you have, you just want to make sure that the insured paid a fair settlement, which again, if you've been out shopping at a dealer for a replacement manufactured home, then it's pretty straightforward. But if the adjuster based their settlement offer on something called Xactimate, which is a software program, it may not have been an accurate and fair offer. A much more realistic to get pricing from a reputable dealer, and just make sure that it included whatever features you had. If you had improvements, steps and aprons, setup, delivery, awnings, etc. What are some of the common challenges for manufactured homeowners? Often underinsured. The ACV won't cover replacing the home. If personal property is set at half of the dwelling, you may be short there. Maybe the adjuster estimate left out some of those costs, the delivery, etc. Maybe there's a legal ambiguity about the title to the land, or there's something with the park owner and all that. Great information on Representative Marsh's website, as I showed you earlier. And then here's the link to the Oregon Building Codes Division to where you can get help with your ownership documents. But I'm guessing for many of you with manufactured homes, you're beyond this. For those of you who have stick built, you've got these 4 options, although it may be very hard to buy elsewhere, except if you are a very persuasive negotiator. Typically, you're going to have to, you have three choices: rebuild the exact same house, rebuild a different house, which you have to work that out with your adjuster, or rebuild elsewhere. But you're always going to be limited to whatever the amount of coverage is in your policy. One thing we talk a lot about, and I'm not going to go into it here tonight because this is just an overview that we're giving you, is scope of loss. If you have a stick-built home, and you want to make sure you're getting a fair settlement for what the insurer would owe if you did put back the identical house to the one that was destroyed, your adjuster may be offering you one figure, and a builder may be telling you a different figure. So there may be a gap between what the insurer is saying they owe you and what you think they owe you. And it may be because the adjuster was using a software program, or it may be because there's not an apples to apples scope. And I'm going to explain that to you in a minute, and just remind you that we've seen many losses go off track because the adjuster and the homeowner and their builder were not speaking about the same project. They were the scope, meaning quality, quantity, size, was different. So getting an agreed scope with your insurance company is one of the most useful ways you can establish a fair replacement value and get your claim settled. So we have a great webinar that you can watch on correcting a scope of loss that your adjuster may have given you, and trying to break that log jam. Getting your own estimate. We have lots of resources to help you with this process. All right. So the dollars really are in the details. If there's a gap between the insurer's numbers and yours, you want to isolate why. Are there rooms missing? Did they have the ceiling height wrong? Are there categories missing? Here's an example where you can make corrections to the adjuster's estimate. And if you watch one of our pre-recorded workshops on the Scoop on Scope, that's free of charge, our team will show you how you can correct errors in an adjuster's scope. Again, I'm sure all of you are past this, so we're going to zoom through it. But some of the sources people have used if they lost their plans, if the plans burned or they're not around, Google Earth and all kinds of, these are resources for trying to reconstruct. These are some of the details that matter when you're trying to get an apples to apples scope of a loss, quality, quantity, so that you can then come together on pricing with your insurer. We're going to zoom through this. For partial loss, commonly overlooked areas, if we have standing home folks with us tonight, ducts, attics and crawl spaces, insulation, subfloors often may have some damage that is causing smell, and maybe the adjuster didn't want to go to the trouble of inspecting the attic or crawl space, or maybe they didn't want to pull off some of the drywall to take a look at the structural elements, but the house smells bad, then you need to make sure that that it gets properly assessed. And these are the things that need to be done to restore a home to its pre-loss condition. What are some of the hot spots on partial losses? Well, they often are a lower priority for insurers than total losses. So often, you'll have an adjuster assigned to a partial loss, a standing home that is overworked and may not really have been trained on indoor air quality or thermal damage. And so you may need to be, again, a pretty proactive advocate for yourself. And that may even include paying and hiring some experts to do the inspections that your insurer should have done but didn't. What are some of the common disputes? Line of sight, matching, clean versus replace, and then people who have health conditions, and the adjuster doesn't seem to be sensitive about it, and people feel that they're being put in a unhealthy situation by having to live in a house where the air quality is bad. Each home and family are impacted differently. But again, who pays for the professional inspections is usually the rub. The insurer won't want to do it. You may not have the money, but you also don't feel comfortable living in a home that you feel hasn't been properly repaired. So these are the important pieces. And this may be a situation where if you've done everything you can, and your insurer is said, we're done, and you feel like your house has not been restored, that may be a good situation to consult with an attorney, but not just any attorney. An attorney that specializes in consulting with insurance consumers and can read a policy, and is familiar with the issues here. Okay. Insurers have gotten, with all these wildfire claims, insurers have gotten a lot of smoke damage claims. And so they have put procedures into place to try to protect them from people overreaching or asking them for things they don't feel they should pay for. So it can be very challenging to really get your insurer to put you back to your pre-loss condition when you have a standing home. Okay, a few best practices: document in writing physical damage and adverse health effects. Seek help from Trisha's agency or a private attorney if the insurer won't budge on a fair resolution as to your smoke and ash. We've got a webinar coming up on April 14th, restoring a wildfire damaged home. And even though we're offering it to people from all the states, smoke is smoke. Okay, we're almost to the end here. A little bit, I should actually, that wasn't a long enough deep breath. Okay. Personal property and contents, no one's favorite. Not that any aspect of this is anyone's favorite anything, but for some people, inventorying what you lost is truly one of the most challenging aspects of the process. Some insurers will allow reduced itemization, allowing you to group, books, clothing. Some will even waive the itemization requirement completely. That is something that our organization encourages you to ask for, and there's no harm in asking. We have a sample letter you can use to say, look, I've gotten this far. Let's say you're 6 months in and your list is, you're halfway there. No harm to asking the insurer to say, look, could we just call this and just pay me the rest of my policy limits? I'm going to get there, and try to negotiate that. Believe me when I tell you that many people have been successful in negotiating that. I can't speak for your state. All I can tell you is my personal experience in the trenches for many years. It's not easy, and you may hit a wall and you may not be able to get it, but there is no harm in asking. And if your insurer offers you a content specialist to help you, great, because it can be difficult. I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight. These are some of the terms around how your personal property is going to get valued. The most important thing to know, the adjuster generally is going to apply depreciation to get to the actual cash value, and that's negotiable. So if the adjuster says, oh, we're depreciating across the board, 30% everything, that's not allowed. Depreciation has to be reasonable and fair. And condition can be more important than age. An old item may be in good to excellent condition, while a newer item may be in poor condition based on use. Excuse me. Some items, like antiques and your framing, which is hidden behind the wall, should not be subject to depreciation because they don't decrease in value. Ask your insurer to give you a copy of the depreciation schedule that they are using. This is an illustration of how, excuse me, a family, you can have the same couch bought at the same time, but if it hasn't been jumped on and clawed and everything, it should only be depreciated maybe 20%, whereas if it's, you know, got the snack stains, maybe 80%. But it's up to you to fight for against excessive depreciation of your stuff. Okay, and here are some of the strategies. So all this you can get more information from our website. So just a few more points, and thank you so much for hanging in with your attention. What are some of the common obstacles? Well, we talked about it. Inadequate insurance. That's number one for most people. ACV only coverage that leaves you short. Not having code upgrade coverage. Those are all three things that are very hard to fix after the fact. If the exact estimate or the insurer's offer is below what you think you're entitled to, some people will call that lowballing. That's much easier to fix than not having enough insurance. The insurer, if you cannot or don't want to rebuild on the original site, but the insurer is insisting that they won't pay full benefits unless you do, not impossible to fix that, but you may need to go beyond Trisha's agency and to a private attorney in order to really, negotiate tough with your insurer to do something that they may not contractually be obligated to do, but may be required because of those laws I showed you about the insurer's obligations to you. If they have fallen down on their obligations, that gives you leverage to get them to do things that they otherwise might not want to do. All right. So best practices as you continue on this journey: keep your communications professional, concise, no long run-on sentences and 6-page letters. Keep it professional and very specific. What do you want? Why do you want it? And by when do you want it? Okay. Avoid venting your frustrations and emotions to your adjuster. They did not burn your house down. I know that for some people, it feels like a second disaster. Hopefully, that's not the case for you, but it does happen. And when that happens, we encourage you to ask for a new adjuster. That's perfectly fine. But also to try to, if you need to vent to other disaster survivor friends of yours or a counselor. But really, the more professional you can keep it with your insurance company and your adjuster, the better things will go for you. The more seriously they will take you, and the better you will be. Now, remedies for the underinsured. Just briefly, this really depends on your specific situation. If the facts, history, and evidence show that your agent or insurer made specific assurances that your home was adequately insured. Now, I'm talking about something in writing, a phone record, notes that you have, maybe you refied and you had a conversation, maybe you did a remodel and you had a conversation and your agent said no, or the insurer said, this is what we've estimated as the appropriate amount on your dwelling. That's evidence, that's history, that's facts, right? If all you have that is, well, I asked if I had enough insurance and they said yes, that's going to be very hard to find a remedy if you're underinsured. But if you have those facts, you can seek what's called a retroactive reformation of your policy limits to what they should have been, and you can offer to pay the difference in premiums, right? So if the insurer finds that there was a legitimate mistake on their end, or and then it's on them to fix it, you can remedy underinsurance, but it is very hard. It almost always happens behind closed doors, confidentially. They almost always require you to give them sign something saying you won't tell other people. And it rarely will happen just through your own force of will. I've seen people who've lost their homes and were underinsured that were lawyers do it on their own, but you're kind of having to make legal arguments. And so it can be really hard without an attorney. But there are attorneys that specialize in this, and you will find them in our Find Help directory. The insurance lawyers you'll find in our directory, every one of them, that they are a policyholder attorney. There's not that many, there's just a handful, but they know insurance. So again, I'm not pushing anybody in that direction. I'm telling you that if you are not satisfied with the underinsurance situation, if you feel that you are really misled, that you have proof that you asked for full coverage, you were told that you had it, and so you didn't take any further steps because you reasonably relied, you should talk to an attorney before you give up. Excuse me. Okay. I want to thank, again, Representative Marsh. I can't imagine that she's still with us after all this, since she knows most of what I said. And Trisha Goldsmith, same thing. Excuse me. Thank you so much. We didn't really get any questions that didn't get answered. So I want to thank our interpreters. Representative Marsh, did you want to have any closing remarks?
No, except to thank you for this chock full seminar, and we will look forward to the April event that's being held by Trisha and her co-workers. And I think helping us all to understand what's on your website and how it's accessible, because I know there are a number of things that people are going to want to dive in more deeply, things like around home contents and how you document that and what tricks are. And I think you have specific resources for that. So if you could say just a little bit about your website and where to find things, that'd be, then there it is. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So to request a copy of today's slides or video, you can email info at stay connected to other disaster survivors. This is where you can do your venting. We have these survivor to survivor forums. No one else understands your challenges like another person who's going through it like you. So we have volunteers who've been there, done that. Some of them even have a sense of humor, which you really can't have unless you've been there, done that. So I encourage you to go to our website, uphelp.org /events. Right there on the top nav bar, it's easy to find. These are the events we've got coming up. We've got a webinar tomorrow, and then the next day on taxes and financial decision making. These are federal, your income tax is federal. So either of these will be helpful to you. One is going to talk a little bit about California. There's really not a whole lot of state specific stuff. So both these webinars, either of them, I would encourage you, if you're thinking about filing, the deadline now is May 17th. There are some things that are helpful to a disaster survivor with regard to your tax filing. And we've got 2 CPAs on these webinars that's sort of their thing. That's what they do. They advise people who've had disaster losses. We also have coming up I guess the next Survivor to Survivor, you're just going to have to go on the website and find it. It may be next Tuesday. And then coming up for Oregon, we've got a pro bono insurance legal help clinic on March 31st. You can register by going to our website, again, ofhelp.org. Go to your Oregon library or go to events and register. It's free of charge, but this is really only if you have a legal issue. If you have just a regular old claim issue, you go to Trisha's agency. But if you have what you think is a real legal issue, this is a chance for you to sit down one-on-one with an insurance attorney volunteer. They are our attorneys for this one are, some of them are the ones that actually taught some of the events in the fall. They're based in Oregon, so they already are kind of in the mix on the issues that y'all are grappling with. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. And if we get more signups, we've got an offer to get more lawyers. Right now, we've got a pretty good registration, but don't be shy. If you feel like you need a consult with a lawyer, you register, you fill out a form, and if we feel like you've got a good legal issue that somebody could help you with, you will get an appointment. For tomorrow, the tax webinar, if you have a specific tax question you want to ask, I believe there's still time to get a question in, and that is the URL there for that. And to review recordings of our previous webinars, you can either go to our website or you can go to YouTube and type in United Policyholders. More information than you'd ever want. Those of you who need free legal help with FEMA appeals, this is the place to go. The Center for Nonprofit Legal Services in Jackson County. And then for those of you who want to talk with somebody who's done FEMA appeals, Legal Aid of Oregon, Legal Aid Services of Oregon, just, I guess, not that long ago, got funding, extra funding, to help with FEMA appeals. And in case you all don't know this already, FEMA has a way of, if you say on your a FEMA application for an individual assistance grant or even a SBA loan that you have insurance, they are generally going to automatically kick it back, reject it, and then you have to come back and appeal it. Don't ask me why, but it don't be discouraged just because you got turned down on your first application. So that concludes our program. And thank you so much, everyone, including our interpreters, Judy and Jesse, Elise, our staff counsel. And again, tonight's recording will be available online and the slides will be available as well. Representative Marsh, anything else before we wrap up?
Nope, just 1,000 thanks to you and everyone behind the scenes who pulled this together. We appreciate it very much. And thanks to everyone for attending.
Yeah, and Trisha, any closing remarks?
Nope, I don't think so. Just if anybody would like to visit our website or give us a call, we're here to help and it can answer any further questions.
And Trisha, when is the town hall again?
It is the end of the 20, oh my goodness, let me see here, was it the 27th or 29th here?
That I can go back to the slides if you like. I did not mean to put you on the spot.
No, not a problem. Let's see here.
I just know that this town hall will be a great opportunity for you to really air if you have questions. You know, the commissioner is the boss on some level of the insurance companies. So he very well, you know, he wants to hear from you. That's why he's doing the town hall.
Yeah, Thursday the 29th.
Okay, great. So that's lots of free help coming up, lots of free help in the rearview mirror. And Representative Marsh, again, I just really tip my hat to you for being so hands-on for your constituents. And Trisha, the same for your agency. You know, we may not have been there in the fall, but there was definitely a lot of help that was available, and that's a good thing. So good luck to all of you who are out there. Thank you for your time. Be safe, be healthy, and know that we are rooting for your recovery. Good night.